Hello, friends. Welcome to our brief conflict facilitation class. I want to introduce the teachers. I'm Dina Ostrovsky, leader and main teacher in Therapy School of Transformation, School for Personal Growth, which serves New York and Boston, and Irina Fegin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Irina. I'm a psychologist and a conflict facilitator, and I work with individuals, with groups, with organizations to support them to work through conflicts, to learn from conflicts, and to discover growth and build stronger relationships and find ways to develop through working on whatever's happening for them.
Mm-hmm. And first, I want to talk a little bit why we choose this topic of conflict for our class. Well, I can tell my personal reason. Many of my students in my school or my coaching students are, I would call middle managers. They working on their career in organizations or business, and they're learning how to be better leaders for themselves, for their groups. And conflict is a part of leadership which often underseen because we try to avoid conflict. We try to avoid conflict, and there are some ideas that leader should lead without conflict, but it doesn't happen. The conflict just going deeper, and they don't know. In many cases, they come to me because they don't know how to deal with it. That's why I put this topic as I decided that we need this topic. Irina, what do you say?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think anytime a group of people comes together, there's going to be differences. There's going to be tensions as a result of those differences. And to the extent that we don't have the perfect capacity for communication and skills in that, people can often, the differences can often result in conflict and a sense of polarization against each other, and maybe a sense of animosity. And those feelings, even if they're not expressed, can be very detrimental for the whole environment of a team. It creates a sense of unsafety. It's a palpable tension that people feel in their body. Affects their productivity and their sort of capacity to be present. And so I think a lot of times when we don't work on those latent conflicts, we actually bring a lot more harm than good to our teams and organizations. And then when we do work on conflicts, a lot of times, it's challenging to go into that process, but once you're in it, it can be very relieving to speak things, to let them out. And then oftentimes they end up being not as, detrimental as they may seem in our imaginations. And also, before we work on a conflict, when we ruminate about it and people go home and they bring this discomfort with them, or they may feel angry, and that plays out in their family interactions. So it's really for everybody's benefit to release that situation, to let that knot of energy go and work it out and open it up.
Okay, so conflict, how to work with conflict. What's your approach if you work on a conflict? What do you do first?
Right. Well, I think the first thing and a really core thing is to hear all the sides of the conflict.
Mm-hmm. It's like not two sides, it could be more than two sides?
Absolutely, it could be more than two sides. Yes, we can start exploring with, a conflict that has two sides just to contain the complexity. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, there could be many perspectives on a conflict, and, as many participants, that many opinions potentially. Although I think oftentimes conflict does polarize along a dimension. So everybody will have a slightly different perspective, but a lot of times there's kind of two sides that people are.
So how you explore both sides? And also I can tell from my experience, even when I facilitate the conflict, especially if it's where I involved in my community or in my group. I usually have tendency to take sides. I usually find myself on one side and another. How to deal with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of times when people think about conflict, that's what they think of, being on one side of some kind of a disagreement. Like many people would define conflict in that way, I think. So that's right. I think that's the sort of automatic situation when we polarize against each other and we start to really, see the other side as being like irrevocably separate from us and unbridgeable. And that's a very painful, of course, state to be in, especially when this is with somebody you work with. So I think the thing to do is to create a space for exploring both sides, and to do so in a calm, respectful, neutral way. Because usually, often in conflict, we get really carried by our reaction to it. We have a lot of emotions, and it's very hard to see past those emotions. We're kind of in a protective state where we just want to take care of ourselves and, affect the other side in some way. But this invites us, the process of working on conflict invites us to step out of that reaction a little bit, enough to really see what's happening.
You actually touch a very important topic, because conflict happens not only on the intellectual level, it happens on an emotional level, also many other levels. Sometimes it's history.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of different people involved. And for me, like, I recently was involved in a couple of conflicts in my community, and I know it was really, even I'm trained, it's really, and I found myself siding with somebody, right? It's a natural thing. And it's very hard. It was very hard for me to step out of my emotions. So what you do to step out of emotional approach and analyze both sides? How you do it?
Well, I think the idea is not to, get rid of one's emotions. I think we have to honor what we feel. There's a reason for it, like you said, sometimes it's a historical reason. These are large identity processes. A lot of times, conflicts often touch on not just the topic of the conflict itself in a local way, but they touch on our identities, our sense of group belonging, things that we are invested in, our institutions, our ways of doing things. So they can touch really deep chords, and I think it's natural and fine that we have really strong reactions to them. But I think, in a way, what happens is those reactions cloud our understanding even of our own experience around the conflict. So we know what we're feeling, hopefully, although even that's not always true. But why are we feeling that? What is the thing on the other side that is so difficult for us? Does one really know? Sometimes you really have to set aside some space to introspect about that. And I think you need to acknowledge the feeling and honor it, but you have to go deeper. You have to really investigate what about this situation is a problem for you. And until you can identify that, you can't really engage with the other side about it, because you can't express clearly what is the root of your difficulty with whatever is happening.
We call it burning your wood inside, around the conflict. And we probably need to do another class, big class about this, right? Burning your wood. But today's class was about structure of conflict, how to analyze both sides, right?
Exactly.
So what's the next step?
Well, the next step is for both sides to do that.
Both sides. So, but what if we, like on some other, like, we cannot make opponent to do that, right? But we can do it fast.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, I think it's best if we have both sides of a conflict engaging in some kind of facilitated exchange. That's ideal. But I agree with you. I mean, that's often not the case, unfortunately. And then, yeah, and then we just have to do our own work around it and do all that exploration and understand what our position is. But what's really...
You told about accusation, right? So I think we wanted to stay on this part. So I think next step is formulate your accusation, right?
Yes. Well, if both parties are participating in the conflict, then yes.
Well, I would say if not, anyway, I can
maybe right.
Yeah, I can start it, like say, so.
Of course.
But first, I should understand my own side. I should understand other side, and I can say this is sometimes it's not easy to clearly, concretely understand what your side in your conflict and what other side in the conflict. In many cases, I see conflicts. I see or people who is stuck on their side and never ever even can listen and understand what happens on the opposite side, or they never take their side and they very fast, like conflict starts, they kind of support other side right away, but never really stay with the position, and then the conflict cycles. They kind of support their side, but they don't do anything about it. So the conflict goes around and around. That's what I see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're bringing up the key reason for why it's so important to really dig down for both sides to what is their issue, what's the problem. And you mentioned accusations, and yes, this is a scary word. It sounds like somebody's about to attack you, but actually a lot of times we do accuse each other of stuff. We just do it in sort of implicit ways, and then it's very hard to respond to them. But the idea here is to come up with a very clear, kind, calm, non-aggressive, but very clear and concrete description of what your concern is, or what hurt you, or what was the problem, and to express that to the other side. First of all, to yourself, and then to the other side, to make a really clear case for what's happening. And that's a responsibility on both sides. And when both sides can do that, that's the beginning of communication. Even in the middle of really bad polarization, you're providing information that the other side can at least engage with. They might not agree, or they might have feelings about it, of course, but you're giving them something to work with.
I usually give very simple rules how to create this accusation. It's like accusation should be first, of course, polite. Second, concrete. What does it mean, concrete? It's never, it shouldn't have words ever, always. You can say always late. You can say you late, you were late today, and it's not a good idea. But you say you always do this. You don't say you. Very concrete example. And this is a very important rules to create accusation. Can we bring some example? So maybe we can bring example, play, and show how you do right accusation. Do you have a good example?
Yeah, let me think of an example. I just wanted to add one thing to what you're saying. I think you nailed it. It's really about being really concrete. And I also wanted to add that the other rule that I like to share is that once you've expressed your accusation, to be very respectful of the other side and make space. So you don't want to send a barrage of information. You really want to pick out one thing, that maybe two things that encompass what you're really trying to communicate, and then let the other side take that in and respond. So that spaciousness is really important to make sure that that this is overall a positive experience, and each side has a chance to really engage with whatever is happening for them.
And another mistake which people do with conflict, they don't create safe agreement and safe space to make this conflict. Usually, in many cases, especially I see a lot with a couple conflict, but I think the same happens everywhere. People don't have a culture of conflict, so they build. Then at some moment, they just attack. Instead, you should, before you do accusation, you should ask permission and say person like prepare person to receive. So you should have agreement. This is a safe space and time. We're both not hungry and not tired, because conflict is very tiresome and takes a lot of energy. So here we are, we sit together, we can look at each other, and this is the time to bring the accusation, right?
Yes, I love what you're saying. And I think in a way that captures the spirit of facilitation, that you're creating an intentional and hopefully somewhat safe space to allow something difficult to be unfolded and processed. Yeah, and I think that can be done by an outside facilitator that comes into a situation, but that's also an ability that all of us have within the context of our work to hold that facilitative role and invite a group or two people or yourself and another person into that space. It's very important.
All right. So can you bring an example?
Well, I was thinking of an example that I encounter in different ways pretty regularly, where in trying to engage in some kind of work collaboration, one side feels that they would like to get things done quickly and within a specific structure, and ensure that it's done in a very particular timeline, and place a lot of value on very specific sort of outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side is a perspective where the person is also invested in outcomes, but they feel that the outcome should be accomplished through a more collaborative relational process, where there's more discussion, there's more checking in with each other, there's more back and forth, there's more seeking of feedback and responding to that feedback. So for them, that's a priority, where they feel like they can't really reach good conclusions or create good products unless they've had a more collaborative exchange.
Yeah, I understand that. One side is more result oriented, another side is more relationship oriented. I see this.
Yes.
So
yes.
How we can approach, how we can show this? Can we play the roles?
Yeah, let's take the roles.
Can you? I'll take more pushy side.
You want the pushy side? Okay,
Yeah,
I'll take the pushy side. Okay, great. I'll take the relationship side.
First, let's first, are we ready to step into conflict?
Yeah, yes, we are. And that makes me realize that what's important is to extend the invitation and then to get consent from the other side. Yeah. I really like that you just asked me for consent. That feels very good. I already appreciate you more than if you just barreled right into it.
Okay, so do you have an accusation for me?
Well, on this side, I feel that when we worked on our previous project that we just completed, I felt that you were really forceful in trying to get the product done in a way that made it very difficult to share my perspective on the process and different decisions that needed to be made. And I felt that you weren't welcoming of my input in a way that I would like, because I'd like to be in a more collaborative process when we create our product.
Okay, now I take my side, right? Hey, I really listen to you. I respect you and I listen to you, but we need to get things done. I already know your opinion and I took all your input and now I'm moving forward with our project. I'm just looking to take us to result. And I don't understand why you're going so slow and why we should slow down to talk more. I don't appreciate much talking.
Okay, so so let's recap. So on my side, the accusation is you're not making enough space for dialogue. And on your side, the accusation is we've already made space for dialogue. You're sacrificing getting things done in the name of relationship.
I also, as a dean, right, I also want to mention that even it's a playful conflict, the atmosphere in between us become a little bit more hot. Even in a play, conflict is hot.
Yes.
Yeah, and like, I feel tension.
You do.
I feel tension.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit scared.
You're a little bit scared. Yeah. It is. Conflict is stressful. To have an accusation be presented to one is difficult. So what we do next? And then also to say that in this case, so we've both taken our sides, which I think is really important. And then to put an accusation out there and to hear in response the other person's experience, that's also a stressful experience because I can see clearly you have a different perspective on this. You know, what do we do with that? Yeah. Woo. Yeah. So what we do next? Okay, so the framing the two sides is an important step to make sure that both sides are clear about what's happening for the other side, because that's not always the case. The other person might say something that they think is really clear, but actually you may not understand what they mean. Or you may be, tense and stressed out and you're just not fully processing what they're saying. So it's important to pause and make sure, did both sides hear each other? Did they understand what the other side meant? So it's good to check in on that. You'll be surprised how often that doesn't actually work the first time around. So that's why I framed it, to make sure that I understood what you were saying. So then what we can do is check with both sides and see, do you have more to say about this from your own position? Is there anything that you need to say to kind of fill this in? Is there some other aspect of the experience that you can add? Yeah, I would say I say everything. I hear you, I know what I consider your input, but we need to move forward and I can do it faster than you, so I do it. Well, on this side, I would say that I actually really appreciate your ability to get stuff done, and I enjoy working with you for that reason. So I don't really want that to change, but I'm wondering if I feel that we'll make a better product if we spend a little bit more time in discussion. So I hear you that you know my opinion, but that's not exactly the same as being in dialogue as we develop something. So I'm wondering if maybe we can both honor the getting stuff done, but also, just kind of make space for some of that more collaborative visioning. Okay, I can say that when you say that, told me that
you want to continue to work with me. It was a big release. In our like conflict theory, we said cool spot, like relaxing spot, because I know that why people are afraid of conflict, because conflict in many cases break relationships. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the moment you say our relationship is fine, I'm like, okay. But also I hear you ask me to go slower and consider, like, spend more time for communication. And I'm like, I really don't want to do that. So I'm like,
I appreciate you being honest with me. Yeah.
So for me, I kind of hold on my side. So what you do in this case, Irina, if one, like, I feel like your side, you're kind of more willing to move, but I'm kind of more willing to stay here. No, I want to move forward faster. I need to move faster.
Yeah. Well, I really like what you said about relationship, because I think that's really at the heart of all of this, is that I guess that's why it's so stressful to get an accusation, because the person's talking about something specific, but what we're hearing is, I don't want to work with you anymore. I think you're a terrible person. You know, I never want to talk to you again. You know, yeah, that's what we're actually hearing. And the person might be saying, like, no, please close the toothpaste, you know, so whatever. So I think that's so important. So in a way, I guess what's happening is that we're actually building more relationship right now as we explore this.
And also see each other better, right?
Yes, yes. Yes. And I actually, in a way, even though you haven't moved to my side,
No,
I do already feel, yeah, I do already feel a little better, because I feel heard. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with me, and maybe you can't even do it, you know? But at least I feel that I made it clear that that's what I would like, and you are considering it, you know? Yeah.
Oh, I would say in my side, I kind of already in a conflict, but I'm spending more time looking at you and kind of listening to you. So maybe next time,
I wanted.
Yeah, next time I'll do it without conflict. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was very small exercise, very like tiny, and I can say for us, we have a lot of theory. Today we did a little bit, but we have a lot of theory, and even more than theory, we know how to practice, right? We have a special exercise for practicing conflict in non-conflict environment. So that's why we decided to organize this series of workshops. And we invite you to join us to our free classes and our conflict facilitation on workplace workshop to be a good martial artist and good dancer in a hot space of conflict. You know what to say about that?
Yes, I please join us. And I think it's all, you have to practice this. You know, I offered a hypothetical example, and you know, we played with it. But when a person comes in with a real thing that's happening for them, especially if it's unfolding, you know, currently in their work situation or anywhere else, the details of it, the really figuring it out, really feeling into it, it has a transformative effect. I mean, even this fictional conflict that we're not actually having, I feel affected by it, you know, in my gut, just because it got us to connect, you know, in this way. And but when one works on real stuff that's unfolding and that has a history and it's, you know, troubling them, it's a very powerful practice, and it changes things, and it changes the way that a person shows up, and it changes a lot of times the interactions that happen around them. So yeah, that's what we want to do in this workshop. We'll give you the foundation, the key pieces, but then lots of opportunity to try this out, practice it, get feedback, try it again, learn together, learn internally, learn with us, and you know, and then take it into your professional setting.
Okay.